We're live.
Live.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're live. Hey, it's Jed with the boy
Kong. My name is Kong. You've only had one. Still on one.
Yeah, he got like a collection of 9 over there. I'm not sure if we share those or those just your pile. Beer is what I'm talking about. This is JK Talk.
It's JK Talk.
Yeah.
And the show that we drink beer and talk about stuff.
That's right.
That's right.
So tonight we're going to talk about comic books, characters specifically. Maybe touch on some stories, both Marvel and DC. Let's see. Kong is he's an anime guy, so he's probably seen more of the anime Marvel and DC comics films. We're going to talk about those a little bit. We'll talk a little bit about how live action movies portray or change characters in good or bad ways. The future of comic book characters, where you think we're going with characters. And we'll touch on some YouTube channels that actually feature comic books that can kind of keep you up to date on the goings-on in the universes. So that is what we've got on our docket for this evening.
Yes.
Jump us off, Kong.
Like Jed said, I am somewhat the anime guy. I've only seen some of the anime that's derived from comic book characters. Marvel is probably the main one. But I'm not a comic book reader. Jed's the comic book reader.
Yes, I am.
So there's some huge contrast between us and what we know.
Yep.
I'm sure Jed knows more than me.
I do. Trust that, my friend.
Yeah, I've only known characters based on movies, animation shows, and
Sure.
those type of stuff, which is relatively pretty close to like comic books.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you take into consideration stuff like, this is a good example. I was thinking of it earlier to kind of prepare my mind mentally for our conversation. Young Justice, the TV show. It's got Superboy and Beast Boy and Raven and Blue Beetle and, Miss Martian, those kind of characters. It's a good example of how DC Comics kind of works in their animation world. The Blue Beetle character is played by 3 different people in the timeline of that character, his birth. I don't know. I think it was the 60s whenever he came around. But the newest incarnation of the character is found in Young Justice, Jaime Reyes. So it's just interesting that I know a lot about Blue Beetle based on the TV show. And then Kong's got this book that's got a bunch of DC characters in it. It's like an encyclopedia of the most famous DC characters, and Blue Beetle's in it. And I realized that there's 3 Blue Beetles. The original's Ted Kord, and I think I've seen Ted Kord maybe once on television as a character, and I'm not even sure he played Blue Beetle. I think he was playing some amalgamated character on one of the Arrow series kind of shows. Or maybe it was Blue Beetle on Smallville. I wasn't a Smallville person. But the Blue Beetle I know is actually from the animation. So there are moments where we do intersect. You have your animation knowledge and I have comic book knowledge, but there's some comic book stuff that I don't know anything about because I base all of my information on what I knew. As far as I knew, I think it may be Jaime Rodriguez. I'm not real sure. Maybe I'm being racist by accident. I'll have to look it up here in a second. I got my phone out. But little did I know there were like 3 different Blue Beetles. I would have never known that. Having watched Young Justice, I would have thought he was one character, which is the one that I was seeing. So, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, multiple people for a character. That tends to happen a lot in comic book characters, isn't that right?
Yeah, it happens a lot. And, let's jump over to film real quick. We'll talk about how it affects film. Captain America specifically has been multiple people. Captain America is like a notion, not a person. Just like Batman is a notion, not a person. There's even been characters that have played Batman while Batman was broken, or God forbid he was in some sort of underworld. I don't think Batman's ever officially died, but he's gone to some pretty messed up places. But yeah, Captain America has been Bucky Barnes, who's also Winter Soldier, who's played by Sebastian Stan in the films, and Sam Wilson the Falcon, who's played by Anthony Mackie in the films, has also played Captain America in the comics. Not the actors, but the characters that they're playing have been Captain America in the comics. And the new thing is if you know a lot about those character actors script or not scripts their contracts is Robert Downey Jr. was on his last film as of Iron Man 3. He had no more Age of Ultron. He had no more obligation to the franchises after that. They've signed some new contracts. They've got him back. Now we're on Chris Evans, where Chris Evans has been in 6 films and he's fulfilled his contract. Now he can either come back or they can retire that character. Well, Sebastian Stan, like yesterday or the day before yesterday, took a picture with a prototype Captain America shield strapped to his back, and it was like, thanks to so-and-so who created the shield, might come in handy, ... So there's a chance that Captain America will continue because after, spoiler alert for pretty much this entire show, Civil War ends with Captain America dropping the Captain America shield, which is very much indicative of him leaving the Captain America mantle, which means somebody could pick it up, which means Sebastian Stan could be teasing that he's going to become Captain America. Or it could be a total MacGuffin. It could be Anthony Mackie the next film we tune in. One of them's got the suit on. So we'll see. We'll see.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
But yeah, going back to the point, so many different characters are played by so many different people, and they... most of the time you have interesting backstories for that person ending up becoming Blue Beetle or Batman or something like that. That leads it to kind of leads you into the fact that your favorite superhero or the superhero you're most used to under that cowl or mask or whatever, or shield, isn't being played by the same person. So
yeah,
the comic book writers do their best to get that across, and sometimes it just falls flat and you want that original character back, but not very often does that happen. Well, but like Captain America is Steve Rogers. Anything after that is just like, we're just trying to get through this series of comics.
Yeah, I think that's like something that I wish they don't do, like if a character dies, I want them to be dead forever.
Yeah.
I
think I saw a list. It's like there's only like a handful of characters that have stayed dead in the last 20 years.
Yeah,
because they're always being resurrected. When you've got a Lazarus Pit, as a character model, which basically just raises the dead. That's a DC thing. You can do anything you want.
Yeah,
you really can. I mean, Damian was murdered in the New 52, and they resurrected him through the Lazarus Pit, and Batman's been resurrected through the Lazarus Pit, and Ra's al Ghul, of course, has been resurrected through the Lazarus Pit. So, I mean, you use that kind of MacGuffin, and then you can do whatever the hell you want to with whatever character you want to.
Yeah. Yeah, that kind of sucks for me. Like, I wish they just leave them dead, Yeah. Like, if they die, they could die in an epic way or some tragedy that's, like, terrible.
Right.
Something
that's meaningful for that character to pass.
Yeah.
I got you.
Like when I don't remember, but I read and watched videos about when the death of Superman.
1993, 92, yeah, I remember that.
Like everyone, I guess, was like going crazy. Like, why are you killing Superman?
Right. With a new character. I mean, Doomsday was new for that comic book series.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he was brand new. He had no workings within that universe whatsoever until the Death of Superman arc.
Yeah,
which is in where he killed, and I'm using my quotation fingers, Superman. Basically put him into some hibernative state.
Right.
But it did lead to, I'll say the interesting thing about the Death of Superman, I was around like 2 years after that. I started getting into comics around that time. And I had a friend who was a big Superman fan, and he hated it, of course, I didn't care much either direction. I didn't know much about Clark Kent, let alone Superman. So it was just a thing. I was a Batman kid, and those universes never intersected. I didn't read as many comics as I could, as I wanted to. Where was I going with this? I'm kind of trailing off today. I've had a weird day.
Superman's death.
Oh, yeah. The interesting thing that happened during Superman's death is we ended up with new Supermen that were not Clark Kent taking over, or somebody taking over Clark Kent's place, but they actually came through and they were individual characters. You got Superboy out of that, who was a Cadmus bastard, basically. He was bits and particles of Superman's DNA. And he's the tormented... Have you watched Young Justice before?
No.
Oh, Kong. Probably, I would say that Batman the Animated Series is the best animated superhero show ever. Number 2 is Young Justice, because Young Justice is amazing. But in that show, Superboy is in the show. So you get to, if you get a chance to watch 3 or 4 episodes, you can actually watch the birth of Superboy, which came from the death of the Superman character arc. And then you get Steel, who's John Henry Irons, and he was rescued by Superman. Basically, Superman saved his life, and whenever Superman died, he decided he would do something for Superman, and that is to become Superman as kind of like a living icon of, Clark Kent, Superman's life. And then you get Cyborg Superman, who's Hank Henshaw, and it's a weird place because right now in the Supergirl TV show, Hank Henshaw and Cyborg Superman are coming into that show. But Cyborg Superman specifically has more kind of involvement in Green Lantern than he does with anything else, because he has provided the Green Lanterns with a lot of hardship in the last 20 years. But Cyborg Superman is not Clark Kent, but he's like bits and particles of Clark Kent's psyche and all that stuff. So they all have some sort of inkling of Clark Kent Superman inside of them, but they're all quite individually different. So even though that Death of Superman arc was cool and it didn't last nearly long enough for Superman to really feel like he was something. In fact, I think that it killed Superman's popularity for so many years. We did get some really cool, like, secondary Superman characters out of it, which was pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's cool, definitely.
Let me know when I'm getting too far into my my nerdity.
That's impossible.
Just pull me back when I fall in.
Yeah, it's like Batman, and he has like people who takes the mantle, here and there, whenever it's needed. Or
Azrael, Nightwing. Recently, Jim Gordon became Batman, which is really bizarre.
Right.
I'm actually reading that series. That's Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo's Batman New 52 from 2011 to 2016, and I'm on issue number 34. 1 through, I think I was telling you this the other day, 1 through 7 is Night of the Owls. No, I'm sorry, 1 through 11 is Night of the Owls. And then 12 through 33 is Death of the Family, which is a really crazy Joker story. Yeah, totally nuts. But everything past that, eventually Jim takes over for an amnesiac Bruce Wayne who doesn't remember that he's Batman.
Right.
Which is really crazy. And I haven't gotten that far. Haven't gotten into that arc yet, but I'm really interested too. So yeah, I mean, there's lots of people that play Batman. There's lots of people that have played Superman, Blue Beetle. I don't think there's only ever been one Wonder Woman though.
Probably.
I think Diana has always been Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
I don't think no Wonder Woman fan could probably tell me differently for sure, but I just don't know a lot about her history.
Oh yeah, me too.
So how do you think? You said that you didn't care for it. How do you think it affects the symbol of the character? Let's not talk about like Bruce Wayne as Batman. Let's talk about the Batman symbol being taken over by Jim Gordon, or I keep wanting to say John Wesley Shipp, but he's the actor that played the Flash, that plays Jay Garrick, that's in the Flash TV show. Azrael has a particular name, and I'm forgetting it. I'll have to look it up. But yeah, tell me what you think it does to the actual, like, the symbol of the character. Not just necessarily Batman, but Superman or anybody that has their character taken over. What do you feel like it does? Does it denature the character for you? Does it take something away from it if it's not the original character?
I think, like, well, I don't know, like if it's not the original character, I don't really mind that. Like, someone taking the mantle, someone picking up Captain America's shield. I just don't want Steve Rogers to be alive again.
So yours is really like, if it's death, it's final.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily care much for somebody. I don't care that much about somebody replacing them. It's just if that person dies, they need to stay dead.
Right.
Take the mantle back over.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like Final Fantasy VII. Like I was just playing earlier. Like when Ares dies. You know, she's dead for good. We always try to revive her.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I think it's like maybe a cop out for like. I don't know. It could be I don't know if I want to say the writers or anything like that, but like just to bring them back because the fans want them back hardcore.
Sure.
Maybe,
Sure.
That's just me though. Like I feel like when a character is gone, they should be gone.
Yeah.
I I remember when I first read Captain America died, it was like he was dead. And then when I got the new encyclopedia for the Marvel, like we realized that he came back alive.
Right, yeah.
All of a sudden, I was like, wait a minute, I thought he died for good. You know, like back in the day when I read that, like they said he's dead and he's gone. You know,
Right.
Steve Rogers is gone after the Civil War.
Yeah.
And then he comes back alive, and I'm like, oh God, it's just like, man, they just keep throwing more stuff into it, you know.
Yeah.
I just can't get tired of that. Like, they keep throwing more lore into the character, and
Right.
I just kind of don't want that.
Yeah. Yeah, and they that's true. The New 52, which is DC's last reboot, I didn't realize that they had never done a reboot before. In the, let's see, it was, what was the 75th anniversary? I don't remember what year it was, but from the time that DC Comics started to intermingle characters, Batman and Superman sharing the same world and universe, that didn't happen until the 50s. People don't know that, you know, that those comic book characters have been around for like 25 years before they started to really become characters in and of themselves within the same universe. And then that universe became very convoluted because here you've got a series of writers writing 15, let's say 15 or 20 comics, and they're all trying to fit everything into the same universe. And that's how you end up with Coast City and Star City and Gotham City and so on and so forth. And that's how they end up being, you know, similar to each other or different, but in the same kind of context, like it's all, you know, New York City or something. But yeah, you're right. Things became... I'm having a hard time keeping track of my thoughts, but you'll have to forgive me. Anyway, yeah, it's convoluted in that characters start falling into place, and then you start getting more and more and more information. But the New 52, which happened in 2011, that was the first reboot that DC had ever done on their characters, and they basically said, we're starting completely over. Like, we don't have readers that can jump in 50 years into the timeline and understand, because this character's never aged, but he has experienced 50 years worth of crime or, you know, or stories within the context of the universe. So when the New 52 happened, it was very strange, and it was a bit off-putting to some people because it changed how people became the characters that they were, and it started from the beginning. But it also kept facets of the previous work, and I'll give you an example. Red Hood and the Outlaws is a comic that's pretty good. It's got Arsenal, Roy Harper, and Star Sapphire, who's running around with Red Hood, who's Jason Todd. And they retconned everything except for Jason Todd being murdered by the Joker, which happened. That's called Death in the Family, not to be confused with Death of the Family. Death in the Family is the murder of Jason Todd, which brings me to another point that you talk about. You know, if you want a character to stay dead, they need to stay dead, or you want to kill a character, they need to stay dead. Fans actually voted in the 80s for Jason Todd to be murdered, and they used the phone service. You know, they called a phone line, they gave their opinion or whatever. And it was like a narrow margin. Just a couple hundred people more wanted him dead than they wanted him to stay alive during this event. Well, they murdered Jason, and Jason stayed dead for several years. He stayed dead for several years until someone brought him back as the Red Hood. And, of course, now we have the Arkham games that have the Red Hood, and then we've got the comics and stuff. But even in the New 52, Barbara Gordon was shot by the Joker in The Killing Joke, but they've forgotten most of her past as the Oracle. And Barbara Gordon had been Batgirl for a while. She got shot by the Joker, and then she became a character called Oracle. She was permanently paralyzed from the waist down, and she was in a wheelchair, and she was like Bruce Wayne's electronics mechanic, you know. She was his mouthpiece when Alfred couldn't do it. In that series, Gail Simone, the writer, took over, and she created this atmosphere that Barbara had taken therapy and she had begun to walk again. She became Batgirl again. So the New 52 was not a complete restart, but it was like, we're going to take some of the most fantastic elements, some of the best stories, and we're going to put those into this new universe, but we're going to remove 50 years worth of stuff, like every time Captain America has died. You know, but of course it's DC versus Marvel, and I'm not talking about Marvel, but what I'm saying is they got rid of all of the deaths. They got rid of all the stuff that confuses you that says, oh, I'm going to jump in at, Batman number 784. Like, have you read 1 to 783? Does it make sense continuity wise? Of course it does. But, yeah, continuity in comics is very difficult. Like I don't know. I'm just rambling. I'm so sorry. I had a really crazy day, and my brain is just totally frazzled from something that happened earlier, and I'm a rambling guy. But that's like talking about comics, when a character dies and they come back, and then now they're working for Hydra. Have you seen that? The Captain America, Steve Rogers is Captain America again, and now he works for Hydra.
I've seen like pictures.
That shit is so ridiculous. It's just so ridiculous. Like I haven't read the comics, but I've read the synopsis of how it takes place. And it's really convoluted. You've got 70-something years of Captain America lore that's linked into, and now we're supposed to go back and say, he's been Hydra the whole time. It's very challenging for people to accept. But it leads into Civil War II, which is, the newest Mark Millar comic, and that has the potential to do some really crazy cool stuff to that universe, but we'll see. I just don't know. Right now, we're in the middle of Captain America working for Hydra, but then working as a double agent or a triple agent. He's a double agent for Hydra, and then he's a triple agent for S.H.I.E.L.D. or some stuff. Like he works for both, but he actually works for S.H.I.E.L.D., and it's very weird. Hard to keep control of.
Yeah, let's move on to animes, huh?
Yeah. Let's talk about some anime.
Jed, you said you haven't seen any of it?
I've seen the anime style Black Widow and Punisher, Marvel. I've seen Gotham Knight, I guess, the one that transforms, throughout the film into different Japanimation styles. I saw Rise of the Technovore and was bored out of my mind. And I've seen Witchblade.
Oh, you seen Witchblade?
Long time ago. I wouldn't be able to give you much of an opinion right now, but I have seen it.
Okay.
Long ago. I watched it on Sci-Fi when they had their anime block.
It did come out a while ago. So, yeah, definitely. But what do you think? Do you think these characters that's, derived mainly from the Western culture coming to Japan, do you think like they work well? Do you think there's potential in it? Because I think the only one, I've seen X-Men, I've seen Iron Man and Witchblade. That's it. Like I could have seen Wolverine and Blade, but I didn't want to, because Wolverine he didn't look
weird,
like the Wolverine that we're used to,
Right.
Skinny is a skinny guy, which he's in Iron Man, by the way.
Really?
It's the same universe, so he ends up in an episode of Iron Man, saves Iron Man's life. But X-Men was really cool, The drawing was excellent. It was like amazing. The story was really good. I did not like how it ended, because it ended in a very Japanese anime style,
Yeah.
The power of friendship, And I was just like, oh no, I like Witchblade. The story was good. I liked how it ended too. But what do you think that can Japanese anime bring out these characters in a different fashion, like they're kind of trying to?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think that it hurts to have different interpretations of things. And honestly, man, our relationship with Eastern cultures has been so strained since the Second World War. I would take anything that I could, to. It sounds really strange, and I'm bringing up something that's super, super old, but let's be honest, many Asian cultures, they tolerate American culture. You know what I mean? They tolerate it. They don't get into it. It's not a thing that they want to emulate as much as we try to emulate them and use imports and exports. But yeah, I think that if there was a chance to kind of recreate these characters in a way that it's more Eastern, that can be accepted by the Eastern culture, for sure. The thing is, though, for me, is I've had multiple chances at watching pretty much all of these. I didn't watch the Wolverine one because I thought he looked ridiculous. I didn't watch the X-Men one because I honestly forgot about it. The Blade one seemed like it was the closest to the comic book character and also the movie. I didn't get a chance to watch it, and I just really didn't like the Iron Man Rise of Technovore anime. It just kind of bored me. Does that mean that it's not viable? No, it just means I didn't care much for it. You know what I mean? Like, it just wasn't the style that I enjoy. But yeah, I think that anytime we have a chance to bridge a gap, especially an Eastern-Western gap, I would take it, you know. But the thing is, like, DC seems to be more ambitious with their animation than Marvel is. Like, Marvel kind of jumped into the Japanimation style kind of awkwardly. I don't know how to explain it, because they hadn't been doing a lot. And then all of a sudden it's like, we're going to do an anime. And it's like, you guys really haven't proven yourselves to make good American style, Western style animation. Why are you going to try to jump into a whole different type of style and culture? Whereas DC, they've kind of always flirted with it. The Assault on Arkham Batman is very Japanimation style. And then you've got Gotham Knight, which, you and I were talking about that before we went on live. That the character transforms in different ways depending on the artist that is drawing that block of the film, which is very interesting and very cool. But yeah, I think anytime we have a chance to change the game up a little bit and change the lore, we should. It's not going to hurt my feelings if the Eastern culture decides that Bruce Wayne doesn't become Batman because, his parents were shot in an alley. It's not going to hurt my feelings. Now, if a Western culture did that, if DC Comics changed his Bob Kane's creation, then that would be a problem. It's kind of hard to explain. I guess I'm open to it and closed to it at the same time. If we mess it up as Americans and as people that, have consumed this character for 50, 60, 70 years, and we change it in a way that doesn't work, that's a problem. But somebody from another culture that wants to view it a different way and wants to make it more viable for their culture, I see no issue with that. Yeah. So my answer is yes and no. Yeah, if we mess it up, for sure. If they mess it up or if they change it, it's not going to hurt my feelings.
All right. That makes sense. Totally. I think there's a huge possibility with it. But since they are Western characters itself,
Right.
Tony Stark he's an American, they should kind of keep it towards that way and not try to change too much of his character.
Sure.
I don't think they really did that much in Iron Man. Since I haven't seen Wolverine, I don't know how he is that much. He might be a little bit that after that one episode in Iron Man. Mm-hmm. X-Men is definitely that style. They kept those characters the way they were. It's really great. Wolverine was that badass, angry guy, and Cyclops. Have you seen any of the X-Men ones?
I probably have, yeah, because they used to be on Netflix, and I'm sure I watched them, but I just don't remember them.
Well, it starts off right away with Phoenix, and Phoenix, Jean Grey dies right there. Right in the beginning.
At the beginning?
Very beginning.
Oh, so they just jump right into the Dark Phoenix, huh?
Yeah, when I first saw it, I was like, wait, is this in the middle episode or something? But no, it wasn't. It was the very beginning. And then Cyclops becomes, depressed after that. Yeah. So they have to go grab him and...
Missing his boo.
Yeah, and, push him into being his leadership role, And in the anime, they show a great leadership Cyclops after he, gains his roles back.
He was always a dick in the TV show.
Right.
He was never really a leader. He was just like, do it. I'm Cyclops. I have red hair and a laser beam eye.
Yeah. So the anime portrayed Cyclops' characters very well.
Really?
It was really well done in that sense. Everyone really, all the characters they chose, they did well. So I think, there is potential. I guess it's based on who's making it and the drawing style, because I watched X-Men because the drawing style was more of how they should look like. Wolverine, he's big, stubby guy. Mm-hmm. So there's total potential there. But I guess they stopped. I guess it wasn't that popular to a lot of people, which kind of sucks.
Yeah. Yeah, anime. It seemed like anime had a pretty popularity boom in the 90s with Ghost in the Shell, and even though Akira was made in the 80s, I remember it being really popular in the 90s.
Oh, yeah.
So I wonder if we just kind of got, as an American culture, we fell out of love with animation. You know,
Probably.
Japanese animation specifically,
Yeah.
because I remember there used to be blocks of television, like 3 and 4 hour blocks of just anime, because I watched them. Sci-Fi had a block, USA Network had a block of anime that you could just watch anytime you wanted, or at whatever particular time that they had it at. And then that kind of faded away, and then I didn't really see anime on popular, cable television or even local television. It just kind of left TV altogether. And then it became like a DVD thing.
Yeah.
GameStop, and it seemed like it retreated back into the like nerd culture, if that makes sense. Like it popped its head out for a while, and everybody was really in love with it, and it grabbed some new fans, and then it went back into its seclusion, into the little American nerd niche, which of course now is a huge thing. But in the 90s and early 2000s, nerds were nerds, dude. Nobody wanted to mess with a nerd.
Yeah, which is cool.
Oh, I dig it. I used to keep my nerd flag hidden, man. I'm a huge Batman fan. I've had all kinds of Batman stuff. My first cake was a Batman cake. I was 4 years old, and it was a cityscape with Batman on it. My love has not wavered one moment. But I used to keep that tucked away because I didn't know how people would feel about it. Now it's like a badge. It's like you're wearing a coat, and it's got all the cool stuff on it that you like.
Yeah.
And people don't care. They want to talk to you about it now, which is totally badass. I love this type of culture now.
Yeah.
The pop culture specifically that we have in the world, thanks to, I would say, media and the internet. That's really, as much as I want to not say it, The Big Bang Theory has helped quite a bit, but that show fucking sucks.
I don't know. The Big Bang Theory, I'm not such a fan of when they talk about like comic book characters.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny when they argue about the characters.
Yeah.
It's definitely funny, but like I like the show because they're scientists and they really act like the science is really accurate in it. They have a consultant and all that stuff. That's kind of why I watch it. But that's about it. There isn't really, I don't watch it because they like comic book characters like I do, stuff like that. But
I just don't. Let's move away from that show. I just don't like that show. I just don't like it. I've watched several seasons, and I'm like, I just really hate all of you. Let's see. What do we got here? We've got how live action movies portray or change characters. Let's talk about that, because we're kind of on the verge of that possibly happening in the Marvel universe.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. What do you think? Let's go to DC,
Sure.
since there hasn't been that many DC movies out there.
Sure.
Like, do you think Justice League will change how people like the DC movies? Because like a lot of people tend to not like Batman vs Superman or even Man of Steel.
Man of Steel was very divisive.
Yeah.
Batman versus Superman was very divisive. Suicide Squad was very divisive. DC Warner Brothers does not have a character problem. They have a post-production problem. They don't have a storytelling problem. They have a post-production problem. Zack Snyder is a really great filmmaker. I really love his films. I loved Man of Steel. I thought it was great. Have I watched it several times? Like 4, 5 times. But every time I see it, I'm like, man, this is a pretty cool movie. But that every frame of painting, it's a YouTube channel, and you should pull it up and watch it, about superheroes. Zack Snyder's film specifically, he has too many moments in it. He freeze frames so many times during a movie to show you a moment when the story suffers. So that's a Zack Snyder issue. But when I say they have a post-production problem, if you look at not necessarily Man of Steel, because I felt like it was pretty cohesive front to back. You knew what was going on. You understood character motivations. The world, the terraformer thing was a little bit of a stretch. I didn't really like that. The fact that Superman killed like his number one alien adversary, which was Zod, I thought that was way crazy. We won't talk about the controversy because it's not really that important to me. Moving on to Batman versus Superman, you look at the film, okay, and Zack Snyder has put this film together, and it's really stylistically badass. You've got I'm not okay. Before we go any further, I'm not going to speak about controversies like Batman killing or Superman not being like Superman. They have time to fix that, and they are. I think Justice League is going to do just that. I think Batman's going to get his shit together. He's going to stop murdering people, and I think Superman's going to stop being such an asshole to every fucking person on the planet. They're going to fix that. But that comes with Justice League. I'm going to talk about the technical aspects of Batman versus Superman and Suicide Squad and why I think that they have a post-production problem. Because it seems to me, once the film is in post-production, Warner Brothers comes in and starts putting their hands all over it. You hire a director mainly for the vision and what they can do for an actor. And then that director influences people like the casting directors to pull up people that they want to work for or they've worked with before that they know they can get a particular style of performance out of. And then that director, and this is for people that don't really know about film. I'm not just being reiterating just for the purpose of reiterating. And then the director, on top of taking the actor to a place, they create a visual understanding of that universe and a cohesiveness that starts from A to Z, even if that film is told B to F. You know what I mean? So when I say that they have a post-production problem, it feels to me like once the director has created the film and they wrap shooting and they start building that project from each edit forward to create the narrative that they want to create, someone comes in from post or the executive office and starts putting their fingers in it, and they don't know what they're doing. They just don't. Zack Snyder is a divisive director because he likes to pull in moments and he likes to make things stylistic and flashy, and the story suffers. But there's no reason that we should be getting Batman versus Superman, the Ultimate Edition, and it makes sense. The movie should have come out and it should have been 3 hours and 23 minutes long in the theater if that was a film that was going to be totally cohesive front to back. But the thing is nobody wants to go see a 3-hour movie. I'm a Batman nerd, and I probably would not have seen a 3-hour Batman movie because it's a lot of time to dedicate. So I understand having to cut the film down to 2 hours and 36 minutes or 2 hours and 42 minutes or whatever. That's still super long, but it's under 3 hours. And it's like when I tell people that I weigh 350 pounds, they go, holy shit, you're huge. But if I tell somebody, that's in person, but if I tell somebody over the phone that I'm 300 pounds or plus, they think I'm fat. And that's happened to me before. Oh, you must be overweight. You haven't seen me, you know.
Right.
So I say that because, I don't know, I've lost my point. But basically, I just feel like Suicide Squad and Batman vs. Superman suffer from post-production issues. The film that we want to see has been filmed. Point blank period. Zack Snyder made the film that I wanted to see, and then we got it in the ultimate cut. We didn't get it in the theatrical version, so when I watched the theatrical version, I said, this is a good movie. It's not a great movie. There's far too much that's left to the imagination. There's far too many gaps between motivations why Lex is on the top of the tower screaming at Superman and why Superman goes for it and blah, blah, blah. Then you get the ultimate cut and all that stuff is answered. That shouldn't be happening. They should have been able to put a film together and put it out for release worldwide that made cohesive sense. They have the talent, they have the skill, they have the money, but they also have someone in there that didn't like a series of cuts that didn't make sense to them, or they didn't like the way the character was framed, and they changed that. And it wasn't Zack Snyder. Period. And then the thing with Suicide Squad is Suicide Squad has like some 40 minutes of Joker cut out of that movie because the movie was basically about the Joker and Harley. And they realized that they had a movie that was about Joker and Harley, and Joker was a total egocentric prick, and he was an abuser, and we don't want to put out a movie like that. And I can understand that because this is hundreds of millions of dollars that they're gambling on, you know. And those investors have a lot to say. So, you know, if I ever somehow become famous and I'm being thrown money to make films, I hope this doesn't come and bite me in the ass when I say this. But it just feels to me like there's some investor, there's some executive that's coming in after Suicide Squad's being filmed and go, hey, listen, we can't have the Joker be a misogynistic, emotionally and sexually abusive person. Like, we get, David, what you're doing, David Ayer, the director. We get what you're trying to do with the script that you've been provided and you've helped write and for the characters that you're trying to portray, but that's not going to sell a movie. They should have taken a gamble and put that movie out as an R-rated film. They should have added the extra little bit and added just enough of the Joker character and just enough of the Harley character to make that relationship cohesive. They needed to add a number of things to clear up why the Enchantress was blowing up the center of town and why she brought her brother back, and that whole story was so convoluted. We as consumers should not be sitting around waiting for the DVD to come out to fix post-production issues. The film should be being put together the way the director sees it, the way the director has it envisioned, and how they want to tell their story. They should DC and Warner Brothers should take the risk. They've already dished out the money. They should take the risk in putting the movie out the way the director sees it. The reason that Marvel movies don't suck is because Kevin Feige's not going, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. Well, I'm not real sure what you've done here in this edit and this, that, and the other. Kevin is making sure on the forefront, before they spend the money, that the story's going to be told by the director exactly how Kevin wants it done with the influence of the director. They work together in unison. Just like James Gunn is a weird-ass director, man. I would have never given him Guardians of the Galaxy if I hadn't have seen Super or Slither or seen some of the stuff that he's done for short films. Because those movies are really weird and they creep you out and they're gross, but they're funny and they're heartfelt and you love the character that is on screen. But you got to think that Kevin was sitting around watching that movie and he saw what James Gunn could do. Because James was nobody in Hollywood. He was a dude that made some $6 and $7 million pictures that were really bizarre and had a pretty good shelf life in their cult followings, but he was not a blockbuster director. He was not making $200 million films. This is a long-winded portion of the... Man, I feel very passionately about this. But the point being is Kevin took a risk. He, as an executive producer, knew that he needed to find the director with the specific set of talents to get out of the actor and to get out of the script what they needed. And then he trusted them all the way to the very end of the project. Where it seems like you've got DC Warner Brothers where they get the person that's going to bring the most notoriety and they're going to bring the coolest flash and panache, but then they come in because they don't trust the post-production issues that arise, because you know how it goes. I put a film together that was 7 pages. It made total sense on paper. We filmed everything exactly the way we needed to film it, and then I tried to edit it into a 7-minute film, and it didn't make any sense. I did that for free with no budget, with a bunch of friends that were spending money on it. I couldn't imagine receiving $50 or $60 million to do exactly that and then come up with a film that didn't make sense. But there's a post-production issue in the DC world where I don't think Marvel has that. Now, the worst movie that Marvel made was in 2010, and that was Iron Man 2, and that was only because it was trying to set up what was about to happen in the Avengers. But it's not a bad movie. You know, it's still totally watchable. It's just like, man, this is really stuffed. There's a lot of stuff happening, and I don't really know what's going on. At the time, I watch it now, and I'm like, oh yeah, 5 years later, we've got this character going this direction, and we don't have that character anymore, and this is going, and this is a relationship now, but that's what that movie was, is it was trying to branch off a bunch of different pieces. But every film that Marvel has put out has this understanding from the very beginning. And you feel it when you watch the movie. You know that they had exactly a specific thing they had in mind they wanted to show for Captain America or Iron Man. To a lesser extent, Thor. I don't think the Thor movies are up to par compared to other films. Or Guardians of the Galaxy or Doctor Strange. Those films feel like they made sense the moment they sat down and started talking about them, fleshed it all out, created the story, filmed it, and sent it to post. And that movie ended up exactly the way they wanted it to from the very beginning to the end. Whereas DC, it seems like it's a total scramble. It just feels like a total scramble to me. And I don't blame the director. I don't blame the actors. I don't blame the executives. I just blame the fact that nobody trusts the right people at the very end of the project in the DC universe, as far as their filming goes. Whereas Marvel does. And it shows in the pictures that we get.
Yeah. No, I'm sure there are those that may think the other way. You know, they believe the DC universe is, and cinematic universe is like coming towards another direction that's different from Marvel, which I see it is. You know, it does have that darker tone. When Man of Steel came out, I like the fact that, you know, it was more subtle in its storytelling, and like the contrast of, you know, light and all that stuff. The way it was filmed was like very different from Marvel.
Sure. Marvel has like this hyper realist feel where everything's bright but also toned down and militaristic.
Right.
Whereas the DC universe has that ash in the air, film noir, dark with the only bit of light that you need kind of feeling. I respect that. Yeah, I love that. That's just tonal differences.
It's probably like Zack Snyder's style.
It is.
Like, I like that. I like that look, Ever since 300, I was like, man, this movie's kick ass,
Pretty much any movie he's done since I think since Watchmen has been that way.
Yeah.
The Spirit, Watchmen, 300, Sucker Punch, Batman vs. Superman, Man of Steel, they all have that film noir kind of ash in the background.
So he might have set that tone of how it looks.
Sure.
I don't know who the director for Justice League is, but
Zack Snyder.
Oh, is it him again? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, no wonder it has that look. Okay.
Jeff Johns came in as acting president of like DC Films, which is good because Jeff Johns is a comic book writer, and I think he's going to help straighten out some of the tonal character-based issues like Batman killing. I'm going to go real quick and say I watched Batman, the original film, the Tim Burton film, and Batman, Michael Keaton, when he's in the top of the bell tower chasing the Joker, he kicks a motherfucker down the belfry, and he dies. Okay, so get off Ben Affleck Batman's nuts about killing people, because Michael Keaton Batman 300'd a dude down a hole and didn't think twice about it. Nobody bitched.
Oh yeah.
So get over Batman killing. Let me tell you this: Batman Year Zero or Year One, whatever, by Frank Miller. Batman used a gun. I don't know if Batman killed many people in that, but Batman has murdered a shit ton of people in his lifetime. So just calm down, okay? Calm down. Let Ben Affleck have his little murdering spree. Just, he'll figure it out. Oh, okay. Hold on. I got to go. Okay, this is going to take like less than a minute. I promise. Maybe more. So, Batman vs. Superman is announced at Comic-Con in 2013 by Zack Snyder. Zack Snyder brings Frank Miller out on stage and quotes The Dark Knight Returns, which is a comic book that Frank Miller wrote, where Batman fucking murders so many people in that comic book. He drives a tank, he runs over people, he shoots them with the tank. I mean, he's a merciless killer. He's in his 70s, he's crazy, he's going after Superman because Superman's like this lackey for the US government. This crazy, crazy story. Then Zack Snyder says Batman vs. Superman will share tonally and storytelling elements with The Dark Knight Rises, or The Dark Knight Returns by Frank Miller. Cue the Batman vs. Superman logo, the lights go black, the show's over. 3 years later, we get the film. Batman murders some people, Superman's a dick, and nobody likes the film. I'm sorry. I don't feel sorry for you if you didn't like the fucking film, because Zack Snyder made it very clear that it was going to be like Frank Miller's comic book, which is merciless. It's unrelenting, and it's terrible, horrible things that it does to people. I mean, people get murdered all through that comic book, and Batman is not a likable character. Batman is the least likable character in that comic, and it's a comic about Batman. So let's just move on from the no-killing Batman, he ruined the film crap, because you're just totally full of shit and you don't know anything about the history. So, yeah. Okay, I'm done. That's it. That's all I had to say. I had to say it. I've been wanting to say it for a long... I've been saying it, but this is the first time it's been recorded.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember when I was a kid watching the Tim Burton Batmans, which, like, I watched it, like, every day, 5 times a day, all the time.
Yeah.
Like, I always saw him killing.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, when I got older, I learned a little more about Batman, and I'm like, he doesn't want to kill. I'm like kind of questioning that.
Yeah.
But I'm like, that's fine. Like, it's understandable he doesn't want to kill. Like, he's a fictional character. They can change him in some way.
Right.
So.
Right.
So I was totally open for both. I was like, if Batman kills, that's cool. If he doesn't kill, that's cool too.
Yeah.
Like when I first played Arkham Asylum, like he almost killed Joker right there when he was like being sent back to the asylum place.
Yeah.
But Batman didn't want to kill him. And I was like, yeah, Batman doesn't want to kill in this one.
Right.
So.
And that's definitely a character trait, but that's not a character trait that they meaning the comic book writers ever considered for many years. I think during the Silver Age, the Neil Adams gray suit, blue tights, and yellow logo era is when Batman started really kind of fixing his behavior. Before then, it wasn't really an issue. It was just a matter of, like, oh, that happened. Like, oh, that death happened because I'm a hero. And we don't talk about it. We just move on. I think the pensive, introspective Bruce Wayne Batman character really came into play about 30 or 40 years ago in the 78 or 79 years that Batman's existed. But that's not to say that's not to take away from the character. It's just another version of the character.
Right.
And when Snyder decided, I'll be honest, Snyder probably didn't even consider it. He just thought, Batman will just run through here and he'll blow shit up. And if people die, people die. Because that's kind of Zack Snyder's style. Like, he doesn't really think about the ancillary characters. He doesn't think about the ground level characters. He's worried about the person that you're seeing on screen. Mm-hmm. So he probably doesn't know much about the mythos of Batman. But yeah, to jump all over the director's case because he made a merciless killing Batman. It's like, but all the death in that film that Batman was accused of was just, it was secondary. Like, there was no thought behind it. It's not like he pulled the trigger and murdered it. It's like he had to kill that one dude with a shotgun because he was going to murder that hostage. Had to kill that person. And then all the people that he runs over blows up with the tank. They're in his way. And that's just point blank period the only reason Batman did that. Right. Anyway, I'm defending Batman. I'm defending the character. But I'm just saying, let's calm down on the worrying about him killing. Because in the next film, he probably won't be murdering anybody. And subsequent films from here, he won't either.
Yeah.
It just seems like they've taken that character, they've shown you the worst of him. They started you out seeing the worst of Batman, and then they're going to bring you back into the more altruistic, smarter Batman, not so anger driven.
Yeah.
So I think he'll have his redemption.
Yeah, I totally see that happening. Like this Ben Affleck one, the Batman vs Superman, he's just a pissed ass guy.
Yep.
And if you're pissed, you're gonna go rage all the time.
That's exactly all he did in that movie was rage. So every moment he had a chance to.
And at the end, it seemed like he got his, mindset back.
Yeah.
So it totally makes sense that they probably won't make him kill anymore.
Right.
So, yeah. Or let him kill. I don't care. I love killing.
Yeah. It doesn't bother me. I mean, it becomes an issue for me when he's rage-induced and he's self-aware.
Oh, yeah.
If that makes sense. Like, he knows he's doing it and he doesn't give a shit about it. That's not Batman. That's never been Batman. But the way that he was done in Batman versus Superman was just a product of the issues that he was having, which was he was being impeded. And he did what he had to do, and those people died, That's a little bit more on the nose for the character than straight up disregard and knowing that you're murdering somebody,
Right.
He would at least go, I can't do this again, but it was a means to an end. Anyway. Yeah. So, we have kind of talked about it, changing characters and fluctuations. Let's talk about character portrayal from the comics to the screen. We've done that with Batman. Superman is a far cry from the Superman in the comics.
Oh, yeah.
The movie Superman, I don't like him. He wasn't likable in Man of Steel to me, and I don't think he was definitely not likable in Batman versus Superman to me. I've not found a moment in his career yet as Superman on screen that I was like, oh man, Superman. This is why I'm watching this movie. I just haven't. I haven't had one of those moments. Even with as many... No, I take that back. I think that the moment in the field when the cape is blowing in Man of Steel, or there's a towel or whatever that's on a clothesline and the young Bruce is looking at it, that's one of Zack Snyder's moments. That was a really cool feeling. We're going to get to see Superman. And then when he tries to save his father, but his father says no, I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I like that part. A lot of people didn't like that part.
Yeah.
For some reason. They're like, why don't you just do it? But I was like, because his father believes that he should be normal. And I was like, he's willing to sacrifice his life for that.
I totally got it in the moment.
Yeah. I guess that's part of our storytelling trait that we have. As filmmakers,
and it goes back to... show don't tell.
Right.
If Clark and his dad had that conversation, then it would just be a bunch of exposition on screen. It wouldn't be interesting.
Yeah.
The fact that they left all of the talking out in that scene and they used the power of non-verbal communication in that moment where his father's in the truck, it's a little hokey. I mean, it's a little cheeseball in how it's set up. Oh, there's a tornado and the tornado's about to kill Dad, and Dad's saving the dog. It's a little silly, but just pull back and look at what's not being said.
Right.
Which is, exactly what you just reiterated. Like, this is why his dad told him to stay, because he knows that he's more valuable to the world unknown than he is to be known. And if he uses his super speed to come over there, that's it.
Right.
That'll be the last time he's not known, and then he won't be worth anything.
Right. Right.
Which is crazy.
And the fact that they killed off his dad in the movie, that's something different. So it's like a different universe. It's not the one that you normally read in the comics where like his parents are still alive.
Then he goes and visits them when he's uncomfortable.
Right.
Yeah.
So obviously that's telling you something else, which is cool. And I like stuff like that. Like the Amazing Spider-Man. You've seen that, right? Of course.
Mm-hmm.
Like.
Yeah. Andrew Garfield.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that.
How like the situation changed from how he lost his uncle from like the original story.
Mm-hmm. Refresh me.
It was a convenience store thing, and
his uncle gets shot in the convenience store.
Not in the convenience store. I believe it's outside. It's been a while since I saw it, but it wasn't that wrestling match that like we all know.
Right.
Spider-Man.
Right.
Andrew Garfield, Peter Parker, was trying to buy candy but he had like 2 cents or 3 cents off. So he's trying to use the tip money to give to that guy. And the guy's like, no, you can't use that. That's either, you leave the tip or we use it.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, fine, forget it then. So he's pissed off, He leaves and then some guy robs the place. And Peter Parker had a chance to stop him.
And he doesn't.
He doesn't. And then that's how.
And then later on, his uncle gets robbed. Yeah. I remember that now.
Yeah. And I was like, that's.
He sticks him up for his car, doesn't he? Doesn't he carjack him or something and shoot him? Or his wallet?
I don't remember.
I don't remember either.
Yeah.
I'm terrible.
But that's more realistic in that sense. I don't quite remember where I was getting at, but I like situations like that, like where they show an alternative reasoning for that, and then that's when Peter Parker knows about the responsibility thing, which they never said in the movie at all.
Yeah.
Great power comes great responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that's amazing. Like I was expecting that, but then they didn't say it, but they implied it in that sense.
Right.
So I was like, that's good. Show, don't tell. Again, in the film world.
Right. Absolutely. So we have down here the future of comic book characters, and who knows what the future of comic book characters holds, because they can't die. I will say that Ed Brubaker is noted as creating the Winter Soldier, Bucky Barnes, and Bucky did die for like 50 years. He was super dead in the comics for like 50 years until Brubaker brought him back in the Winter Soldier in the 80s. And now, of course, that character is so popular that he's got his own character in a film.
Right.
Series of films.
I think that's a resurrection, worth it. 50 years is a long time.
It's a long time. Yeah, that character died as a child. Right. As a matter of fact, I think he's died as a young teenager in the comics. Trying to save... Okay, hold on. I think he and Captain America, because Bucky was like a child sidekick to Captain America. Oh, okay. I'm pretty sure Bucky gets blown up on a rocket. And he saves Captain America in the process, but he blows up. He gets murdered in the process as well. But yeah, Ed Brubaker brought him back after several decades, and that was a huge thing. It was one of the biggest twists in comics at the time. I wasn't around for it, but I've read several people saying, it was incredibly powerful because, nobody knew who that character was until the big reveal, and of course it's a character that's been literally dead. The most that's been done for this character is, Steve every now and then lamenting about how Bucky's dead, and now here he is being brought back. So the future of comic book characters, I would say, is variable. When you have things that can resurrect people, and you have beings that can bring people back or erase time, or anything is possible. The impossibilities are endless, as the tagline for Doctor Strange says. By the way, great movie. One of the best taglines I have seen in many years. The impossibilities are endless. I just love it. I say it to myself sometimes. It's like the impossibilities are endless, Jed.
That's like stuff I say.
Yeah, it is kind of a Kongism.
I think that's why I like the movie. That movie, like, it kind of reminds me of me, you know, like wisdom talk, but my wisdom leads nowhere.
Yeah.
But theirs do lead somewhere.
That's so true. You're just full of shit.
It just sounds cool.
I swear though, you're like Wong. But you're right. You have more, like, you're stoic, and so is Wong. But Wong doesn't laugh. You know, he laughs at one time at the very end of the movie.
Right. Yeah.
But you laugh quite a bit. You're a jolly dude. But I swear, up and down, like you look like Benedict Wong to an extent. Which, by the way, is a handsome guy. You shouldn't feel not proud of that. But you look like him. You have the same physical stature as Benedict Wong, the actor that plays Wong in the film. And then the character itself, like how forward he is about the books being taken and stuff, like that's very you. You know, like I would expect these books not to be taken, you know, because you haven't been permitted to do that yet. You know, like that's totally you. I'm like, I can see Kong in this role. My mom leans over in the middle of the movie. This guy reminds me of Kong. I'm like, yeah, he does. He does. I thought that the first time I saw the movie. Oh man,
I guess that's flattering for me. Yes,
it should be, man. He's a great character.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm definitely not taking anything of value away from you by saying that I think you're like him, because he's a pretty badass character, and I see a lot of him in you, and vice versa. But yeah, so I don't know how we could talk about the future of comic book characters, because it's all about how they get resurrected and where the next twist lies. You know, right now, I think Bruce Wayne just finally took back the mantle of Batman in like the last 10 comics or so.
I thought he died. Like, I read a while back that Bruce Wayne is officially dead.
Nope, Bruce Wayne is not officially dead. I don't think Bruce has ever died, honestly. I have a feeling I don't think he's ever been actually murdered. He staged his own death several times. You know, like, oh, Batman's dead, but then it's like he's not dead. He's just across the street wearing a hoodie, you know.
It's always a hoodie.
It's always a hoodie, right? Yeah, the Marvel movies love to put their good guys or bad guys in hoodies, right?
Yeah.
Shit. Civil War had Sebastian Stan wearing a hoodie.
Yeah.
Captain Zemo wearing a hoodie. Captain America wearing a hoodie. And Falcon wearing a hoodie. I'm like, wow, there's a lot of hoodies. Lots of hoodies. And their hats are the same color as their character, you know, costumes are. I thought that was pretty funny. Falcon's wearing a maroon hat, and Captain's wearing a blue hat. Sebastian Stan's wearing a black hat. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense.
Well, do you think, besides characters that we know already, do you think, like, there'll be rising new characters that, like, they bring on and, like, it becomes really popular?
I think so, yeah, actually. And I'll give you an example of how popular some new DC characters are. And the reason this is so DC heavy is, one, I'm a huge DC fan, but I also have, in the last 2 weeks, I've read 60 DC comics. 60 individual comics from the New 52 era. And yeah, actually, I think that, you know, we have this notion because we've lived in this world long enough with comic books as a part of it, that we've seen and heard the best of, you know, the characters that can be created, you know. We just keep reiterating new stories, and we try to find new twists for those characters, but for the most part, like, the history has been written in the 5,000, 6,000 characters in the Marvel Universe. They'll bring one back, but they'll never create another great one. It's a silly notion, but I have felt that way before, having read as many comics as I have, which is not just a great many, but I have quite a few at my home that I've read. And usually the characters that are in the comics are at least characters that I've heard of before. They're not characters I've never ran into until recently. But I would say that we're definitely in a place where comic books are so much more viable than they used to be. In the 90s, they were dying. The reason that like Universal owns the rights to a Hulk movie and a Namor movie, and the reason that Sony owns the rights to Spider-Man movies and all of those Spider-Man characters, and the reason that DC or Disney now owns a vast majority of Marvel characters is because they were falling apart in the 90s. Marvel was. they were coming to a place where characters in that universe were going to have to be sold to other comic book companies, and they would effectually become characters in other universes, which is really weird and doesn't happen. But they started outsourcing copyrights and likenesses and stuff like that to pay their bills. So that's why we have such an intermingling and mixing of characters. Now, I say all of that because in the DC comics, the ones that I've just read, the 33 Batman comics that I've read, and some other comics as well, there's a lot of characters now that used to be super popular that, for all intents and purposes, are like D or Z list characters. You know, they're like really, really not characters that are used in comics, are finding their way to into brand new comics. For example, Secret Six is a comic that ran for 14 issues from 2015 to early this year, and it was written by Gail Simone, and it starred like Catman and a new character called Porcelain. And Porcelain is a really badass character because she is androgynous, can be male or female. It's always the same male body and face or female body and face, but she can choose to be male or female. That's not really her power. That's like a secondary kind of manifestation of her power. But her power lies in the fact that she can touch anything, and depending on its density, she can make it even more brittle than it is. So she's called Porcelain because porcelain is very easy to break.
Right.
So during a series of 14 comics, a lot of her power is derived and used to help them break into things. So she puts her hand on concrete, and the concrete starts just kind of cracking and imploding, and it falls apart, and they walk through the door, or whatever it is they're trying to get through. Or she's blowing up some sort of crystal or something. So interesting character, and it's brand new. I think Gail Simone wrote that character for the comic. And then you go over to Batman, and Scott Snyder quite literally wrote an entire series of characters into canon in such a way that now those characters are showing up on the Gotham TV series, which is the Court of Owls. That's a ridiculous thing because the Court of Owls until 2011, when the New 52 introduced them in Batman #2, didn't exist. And they're a society that has existed, and that's in quotations, in the Batman universe since like the 1800s. So through a series of 9 Batman comics, plus all of the ancillary comics, Birds of Prey, Red Hood and the Outlaws, and the Red Robin comic, and the Batman and Robin Damian comic, and the Detective Comics, and even All-Star Western that stars Jonah Hex, you can start looking in all those comic panels and finding owls that are set all over these different timelines, all the way from the 1800s to current day Gotham. And the character that Greg Capullo and Scott Snyder created was called the Talon, and the Talon is one of the mercenaries that works for the Court of Owls. Then later on you find out that there's hundreds, if not thousands, of Talons, and they're all different people, but they're zombies. So they've been resurrected through this mixture of gold and silver that the owls know of. But none of those characters existed till 2011, and they're quite literally classic Batman characters now in 5 years. Blows my mind. Absolutely blows my mind.
Yeah.
Kevin Smith created a character called onomatopoeia, which onomatopoeia is when you read a sound, like bang or pow or boom or zoom, anything like that is a sound, but it's made into a phonic form. Kevin Smith created that character like a decade ago, and he wrote some comics through the Green Arrow comics and Batman comics. Another character that Greg Capullo and Scott Snyder created is called Mr. Bloom, and Mr. Bloom is a crazy character, man. Mr. Bloom is nuts. But I think that the notion that we're never going to have really cool comic book characters, like new ones, ever again is really silly, because I'm reading some really cool stuff and I'm seeing some really cool characters. And as long as there are creative people out there in the world that have an outlet, we will constantly have new characters that will add to, the elements of the characters in the comic books that they're affiliated with.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good to hear, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Quarter Hours, I always hear that, it's still fairly new and it's instant classic all the time.
It is an instant classic. And
it is. I think it totally is. Like, when I heard the story, I was like, man, it's amazing.
Yeah. I read today, as a matter of fact, because I didn't know that they were teasing it on Gotham. I did, but I didn't. But someone brought up the point. The person that had written the article on ScreenRant.com basically said that the reason that it's so effective is because it reinforced what we already know. Batman's greatest foe is Gotham itself. The people in it are who he fights, but he's constantly fighting against Gotham itself, even though it's his city. So there's that dichotomy that Gotham City is Batman's problem and will forever be Batman's problem. It's not always the Joker. It's not always, Catwoman or Clayface or Two-Face or Penguin or any of these characters that have been created. It's quite simply, it's the city that they reside in that Batman will constantly fight. And I thought that was really brilliant. And the reason that the Court of Owls are so effective is because they represent the city before Batman and his family, the Waynes, even had possession of it. So you find out in the comic that they've been dealing with... They tried to break into Arkham Manor, or into Wayne Manor, in the 1800s, and they had... Like, in Wayne Manor, there are owls. You can find owls in the concrete and stuff. Like, not real owls, but like concrete owls and stuff on the architects and things like that. And Jonah Hex goes and visits Amadeus Arkham, who's the father of Arkham Asylum, and he was at Arkham Manor and he was at Wayne Manor. And you just look everywhere, and there's constantly owls throughout that series of comic books that start with Court of Owls. And yeah, it's because Gotham is Batman's greatest enemy, and they are representative of Gotham City itself because they are older than the Waynes. And that's something that had never been, the Waynes were the oldest family in Gotham, the most affluent and most influential. But then here's this like Freemason kind of Illuminati that have been working underneath the Waynes the whole time, if not before. It's fucking brilliant, man. It's just beautiful. It's just it's a story that you've heard before, but it's never been put into Batman, and it just totally works.
Oh yeah,
such a killer story, man. Yeah, totally instant classic. I'll go for it. Anytime somebody says that, I'll agree.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we are coming to our time, but there are some YouTube channels that, if you're interested in comic books, they're really good to check out.
Yep.
Comicstorian. They explain like a lot of the storylines from comic books. If you don't want to read the comic books like me, they like explain everything in a dramatic reading, which is even cooler. Cool. It's not some monotone guy like, and then Batman jumped, and then he said this. No, it's really dramatic reading, and it's good timing. It's not like it's gonna take a lot of your time to like listen to it. Variant Comics. If you want to learn more about the characters of comic books, they do more than just Marvel and DC. They do like a lot of the other ones like Spawn and Witchblade and whatever they are. I don't know what company they are. They are also a part of Film Riot. If you guys are film people, they're the same guys. That's why their production value is very good.
That's cool.
So
I'm gonna check that out. Variant Comics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you mentioned earlier about that YouTube guy talking about the moments with Zack Snyder stuff.
Sure, yeah.
Which
every frame of painting, is that right?
It actually wasn't that guy. It's a Nerd Writer, and there's a 1 at the end.
Nerd Writer 1, yeah.
That guy, he does a lot of different videos. It's like video essays. That's all he does, essentially. He does a lot of understanding art. He's a film guy, so he knows a lot about film.
Sure.
So he like studies movies and stuff, and he talks about characters like Superman, Batman. Yeah. So he does those stuff. He's pretty cool to watch too. So check those out if you want to.
Yeah. And I'm gonna plug your local comic book store. They have troves upon troves of cheap comics. If you have never picked up a comic before and you want to read a comic, but you're kind of like me and anybody else, you feel like you don't know where to start, stop worrying and just pick up a single comic. Seriously, that's all I did. I went to a comic book shop and a comic book convention after years of talking about wanting to read comics and being totally afraid of it. And I said, you know what? Doesn't matter. I'm just going to pick up a comic. You're going to learn, you're going to learn plenty about the comic book character just by picking up, even if it's number 175 out of 180. Right. Just pick it up and read it. I mean, it's fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. And then you start to realize that there's particular styles of art you like and particular ink artists who do things that you enjoy, and the next thing you know, you're a total nerd like I am. So don't be afraid to pick up a single comic book or 2 comic books for $2 or whatever. Just read them. Find out if you like the character. Give them to somebody that might want to do it themselves.
Right.
Try to take that step. Comics are great. They give back to you.
Right. Yeah. Since we did mention Every Frame Printing, we'll talk about them.
Sure.
Every Frame Printing is a really good YouTube channel as well. If you're a film buff like us, he, I guess he analyzes things in movies, like how to do comedy, how to do action.
He's the Westworld guy, right? The one that broke down Anthony Hopkins.
No, that's Nerdwriter again.
Dadgum. Nerdwriter apparently is amazing.
Nerdwriter is really good. He has an episode every Wednesday, so yeah. But Every Frame Printing, that guy's pretty good, but he's not really consistent with his videos. There hasn't been a new one in a long time.
Yeah.
But he's pretty good at what he does too. But yeah, that's going to be our show. I'm Kong.
I'm Jed.
This is JK Talk.
You
Thanks
bet.
for listening.
Thank you.